So for sketching first part of Ravindra Jadeja, our main focus will be on the hairs, which are little bit brownish, and most of the time those are little bit curvy in the end and more blackish in the ends, not in middle, not in start, but in the end. So I have used a grid method for sketching this tutorial. If you don't know how to use a grid method, just comment down below. I will make another tutorial for you all. For making this tutorial of Ravindra Jadeja, grid dimensions are horizontal, it is 14 boxes, per box 1.5 centimeter, and vertical it is 17 boxes and 1.5 centimeter per boxes. Just go with the flow like I am just drawing from the box to box. You can draw easily using the grid method, and if you are a beginner and don't know how to make or use a grid method for making portrait sketching, just see the whole 3 parts, or you can also see my previous parts or previous portraits, how I make outlines, how I make blendings with skin texture. So now for making hairs of Ravindra Jadeja, I have used charcoal pencils, and mainly 2 charcoal pencils, which is first of all medium charcoal pencil and second is soft charcoal pencil. As we all know, but for beginners artists, charcoal pencils are little bit more dark as compared to graphite, and if you are a beginner you should know that graphite pencils cannot or should not be used with charcoal pencils, and the main reason is that they don't blend easily. Or if you will use a graphite pencil on charcoal pencil and if you want to blend them, it will look totally shining and your portrait sketch is totally weird, or in the end result it will look totally weird. So for making hairs, our main focus will be on how the lines are going on starting and in the end. So if you can focus that above the forehead, the start of the hairs is little bit curvy, but in the middle part it is straight, and in the end part it is little bit curving on the left side. So first of all, see the details that you see on your reference picture or any picture that you are using. The main difference between a man's hairs or men's long hairs and female long hairs is that female long hairs are little bit straight and those are not more curvy as compared to men's, and men's hairs are little bit short, so you can make straight lines. As we all know that there are millions of hairs on our head, and it is nearly impossible to make those million hairs on sketch. So for that you have to first make a base layer, and base layer I have used medium charcoal pencil because medium charcoal pencil are a little bit more detailed as compared to any other charcoal pencils, which are hard one and softer one. First make lines of hairs start and end. So after that just highlight little bit hairs which are in the middle. There are 2 techniques you can use, first as a base layer as a medium charcoal pencil or soft charcoal pencil, and in the end just highlight those parts with mono eraser which are highlighted. Or as we all know that the light source is on right side, so of course the details and highlights part will be on left side. So you have to focus that where highlights and shadows are. So of course the middle part of the hairs are a little bit more highlighted as compared to any other parts. So for making those parts, just you can directly go for making those hairs with mono eraser and highlighting, or you can also make a base layer, then second layer, and in the third layer use soft charcoal pencil and leave those smaller highlighted parts. And I have used a mechanical brush, or you can also use a makeup brush which is harder one to blend those charcoal pencils. Now for blending those forehead part, I will never recommend or I will never make charcoal pencils on the skin texture, and the main part is that if you are using a charcoal pencil powder, that is useful for making skin texture, but if you are using a charcoal pencil for making skin texture, it is more tougher, or it is not used. Most of the artists or most of artists don't use that technique for making charcoal pencil as a skin texture. So use 2B pencil as a base layer for forehead, see where the highlights and shadows are. Then in the second part use earbuds or tissues, or you can also use makeup brushes which are softer ones, and blend those part of skin texture. And finally make a third layer, or you can also say that the 3B layer, which is the darkest parts. First as a base layer 2B, blend it with the earbud, and second part just blend or add only parts which are more darker. Now for making the ears, our main focus will be on where the darker parts are, because in the ear, as we all know that the light source is on the right side, so of course darker parts of ears which are visible, you have to use 4B pencil. Don't use 4B pencil for skin texture, because main purpose of any portraits is that you see the skin texture or color. The color of the skin remains, or the color of the skin tells you which grade pencil or graphite pencil you should use on the skin texture. As in previous parts we have seen that the skin texture was little bit fair or whiter, so we have just used 2B and 3B pencil. But for in the case of Ravindra Jadeja, it is little bit more blackish or middle of the blackish, so just use 2B, 3B and 4B pencil only on the darker parts. So as we can see that the ear is looking little bit darker, but darker part is visible, and I will use a mono eraser for making those smaller highlights. Not every part of ears is darker, so always use a layer by layer method. First use 2B pencil, make a base layers and highlight apply more pressure to the parts which are more darker, so that when you will use 3B or 4B pencil, you should see the details, and after using those base layers and second layers, you can go for the next part. Now for making the eyes, our main focus will be on the pupil and the main eyelashes and eyebrows part. Generally the eyebrows and eyes are blackish most of the time, 75 to 80% times those are totally blackish. But if you want to give it a more realistic look, go for grade by grade method. Or most of the artists make this mistake, like they directly go for 8B or 6B pencil and make those pencils directly on the pupil or eyebrows. But I will recommend use 4B or 5B pencil as a base layer. For making eyebrows, the dimensional method, as I said in previous parts also, that use directional method, which is that for the starting of the eyebrows, the hairs, those are small hairs, are going from down to up, layer a bit down to up. In the middle of the eyebrow, it is going down and layer a bit horizontal up, not totally up but horizontal up. But in the end of the eyebrows, those smaller hairs are going upward to downward, so you have to see those details. Use a 4B or 5B pencil for making those smaller hairs first, then blend it using a makeup brush. Don't use earbud for those smaller detailed part like hairs. Don't use earbuds on those parts, because if you will use a tissue or earbud for making those parts blending, then the details of the hairs will totally fade. So use a makeup brush, or you can also use your pencils for making those shades. Use those shades for your advantages as a 2B or 4B pencil. Like eyelashes, like pupil and any other part of eyes which are more darker, use 5B pencil as a base layer, then just outline. Don't apply more pressure, because if your eyes will look little bit bigger and if you want to erase it, it will not be erased easily, because it is more high graded pencils like 5B or 6B. So use low pressure for making those eyes or more details. Then finally, if you see more darker parts on the eyes, just use 8B or 10B pencils. Now for making the parts which are inner parts of nose or the fine upper part of nose, you have to use a base layer first. Base layer is recommended by me always if you are a beginner artist. I see most of the artists don't use this method, they just go directly. They use the charcoal powder, which is also a helpful method for making sketches, but that will look totally drawing look. We want realistic or a hyper realistic sketch, just like the portrait or the reference picture we are using. So making those parts more visible or more highlighted or more beautiful, just go base layer, first layer and third layer. As you can see that I have used a different layered pencil on the eyes or middle of the eyes on in the end of the eyes too. Always sharpen your pencils after using or 20 to 30 strokes. Just sharpen your pencil with sharpeners. I am also using sharpeners. Previous portraits I have used a blade for sharpening my graphite pencils, but now I am using sharpener, which is giving me a more detailed look while I am sketching. We will sketch the remaining parts of Ravindra Jadeja in second and third part. So that was all for this tutorial. If you have learned something from this video, subscribe and drop a like. Comment down your question and queries regarding this tutorial. Meanwhile, take care of your loved ones too. Have an artistic day. Tattoos.